how every time I'm on the podcast, we talk about how this is 2023 all over again.
It's just, it's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Don't drive angry. Don't drive angry. I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged Podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged, the podcast edition. Joined today by busy reporter Stacey Barchenger from the Arizona Republic. You had a hell of a week. How many vetoes did you cover this week? How many bills were signed? And we're going to be talking about some of these, or are we going to go into in-depth detail on each and every bill she signed?
Yeah, I thought we were just listing them.
No? I thought we could list and then go into deep detail. Make this maybe a 4-hour podcast.
Oh, I hear people are into those.
Hey, they're really into the weeds on some of this stuff. I know.
Yeah.
I know Colin is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's always asking me about line something in some bill number.
Wow. And now I'm worried about you guys.
It's like, tell me about chapter 2, line 13. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. So a lot of bill signings, a lot of vetoes. Let's start with the signings before we get to the fun stuff with the vetoes. What was the signature piece you think she signed this week? I mean, there was swarming bills. There's APS payback bills, possibly.
Let's talk about the APS bills. There's kind of like two of them, right? Yeah. So she signed this measure that changes the standard to sue utilities over when their equipment causes wildfires. This is something that had been pared down from a prior version that a lot of people objected to as just this kind of like free-for-all for utilities. She signed that. And then this other measure that I will not bore people with this, but it's like a financing tool for utilities. So they can basically sell bonds to cover other debts. A lot of pushback from like environmental groups and a lot of Democrats in the legislature on that one. Sandy Barr of the Sierra Club said the state needed a strong governor in this moment and got a rubber stamp.
Yeah, they did not hold back.
Yeah, right. But an interesting example where we see the governor signing a bill that is not supported by all members of her party in some key constituencies. And then, our friend Howie Fisher at Capital Media Services happened to also report this week that she got another $100,000 from APS for her campaign apparatus, the campaign side of things, which, is a twist, I would say, in these bill signings. I think,
the timing on that couldn't be more twisty.
Yeah. I mean, the donation was made last year. It just came to light the day before she signed this bill that is seen as helping Arizona Public Service.
And she's not disclosing any other donors on that side. And we can get into a little bit of that a little bit later. But,
sure.
This was the governor that ran on transparency.
Right. Yes.
And, in context, too, APS also donated to her inaugural fund.
Yeah.
Back after she took office. And if I remember right, I think I'm old enough to remember that she was hesitant to release the donors in that at first.
Oh, yes, correct. Yeah. And when they did, we found out that APS was the single largest donor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, so I was, I got a statement from APS on that. It's like, hey, do you think these donations, the inaugural fund with the legal defense fund, influenced her decision on these bills? And of course, what they said. Of course it didn't. She makes her own decisions and whatnot. But a lot of people were looking at that with a little bit of side eye. The people who were especially opposed on the wildfire indemnity bill that gives them partial indemnifies them partially, and looking at that and saying like, look, this is just a bad look at here. And Sandy Barr, who you just quoted too, also told me something along those lines that that you need an active governor, state legislature, corporation commission to regulate APS, and she doesn't feel like that's happening.
Yeah, right. Well, it's so interesting too. Like, just to nerd out about campaign finance here for a second, like.
All right. This is the place for political nerds. Let's nerd out.
So corporations can't give money directly to candidates here, except for Governor Hobbs has found two ways that are legal to allow that to happen, right? The legal defense fund that we just learned about, and then this inaugural fund. So at least $350,000 going directly to accounts for her benefit or to pay her lawyers.
Yep. And when I asked the governor's office why they signed the bill, they're saying, well, we worked to make the bill better. It's like, it's kind of a strange thing. It's like, well, do you still think it's good? And they were really stressing that, that it was a worse bill before. It's like, okay, but, that, as Sandy Barr would freely admit and told me, and I'm sure she told you, it's like, look, this was a terrible bill. And yes, it got better, but it's still not good enough.
Yeah. It seems like a question still of whether that bill is going to cost you and I and other ratepayers more or less. Mm-hmm. We hear the governor saying that the utilities have to pass the savings on, but not all, but many of the opponents are saying this is just going to end up costing more because of this bonding ability.
Yeah, and with the wildfire, the other twists with that bill is this past week we saw the Greer fire heat up the day after she signs this bill, and initially it was reported that it may have been started by a blown transformer. Now, it's still under investigation as we record here on Friday, as far as I know, and I know people have disputed that claim, but that was another twist in this whole thing, like right after that.
Yeah, interesting timing this week, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? Right, and then another question I had for this, and I didn't get answered. Maybe you asked about it or whatnot, but I do wonder if people's home insurance in rural areas of Arizona that could be hit with a wildfire could go up.
Yeah.
If there's no legal recourse, if their home burns down, because under this legislation that was signed, like as long as they have a mitigation plan,
right,
you can't be sued. Basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, certainly like unanswered questions for both of these bills, right? It might have to be like a wait and see, and hopefully Arizonans are cool with that approach.
And then this week we also saw the anti-swarming bill. I mean, this was the Gilbert Goons. The Arizona Republic was the one who had found this story, was reporting on this story. I mean, there was no way if she was going to veto this. Was there any opposition in the legislature to this?
Not a lot. I mean, we saw bipartisan support for that bill. I mean, it's a murdered child. Certainly want to crack down on that. I remember when that bill was introduced. You saw Rachel Mitchell out advocating for it at the Capitol. Certainly got a lot of support to respond to this very tragic situation.
Yeah, and I wonder, unanswered question, we won't know until time, but for a long time. But I wonder if years from now we look back and you start seeing reports of how this law may be misused by law enforcement in the future. Because I've seen a lot of this type of emotional legislation passed in the heat of the moment, and then there's some unintended consequences. But that's time. Time will tell.
Well, you and I can do this again in 5 years, and we'll go pull the statute and look at how it's been implemented.
Deal.
Okay.
I'm all about that. I'm all about that. It seems like we're caught in this same cycle anyway, because we're always joking about how it's seems just like 2023 again. I think you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So, what else this week?
Well, I mean, speaking of protecting kids, we have this identification bill that the governor signed that requires
porn ID.
Yeah. Okay, we'll cut to the chase. So
porn ID. It's the podcast. We can cut right to the chase there.
All right. So basically, pornographic websites have to ask for ID from their visitors now, and the bill is designed to keep kids safe from stumbling upon these websites. It's a effort to protect children from explicit images.
Because we got to always protect the children.
But fascinating to me because the governor vetoed a very similar bill last year. Not identical, but very similar in terms of the broad idea. And in explanation for why she signed it this year, her office told me that they had, just continued to observe the increasingly harmful effects that these sites have on kids and exposure to these websites that can harm kids, and that new evidence had emerged about those dangers, which is a follow-up question of what evidence that is, and I'm still waiting for an answer on that one.
I'm sure you will get that, because that was the interesting part. How do you go in the span of a year from vetoing the bill to signing this piece of legislation that also it's setting up for a lawsuit? I mean, ACLU is probably going to sue over this because we've seen this in other states.
It's before the U.S. Supreme Court right now,
Yeah.
right? A very almost identical Texas law was argued in January, so we're waiting for a ruling on that. So it's kind of interesting that we enact this here in Arizona while it is so uncertain.
Yeah. So, I can't wait to hear the explanation from you. I'm sure we'll be asking her the next time she's out and about, and, and it'll be interesting to see what that is. And I mean, is it connected somehow to campaign politics? Maybe she doesn't want to. We was on the show earlier, the TV show, and Matt Benson had said like if she vetoes this, that's tailor made for TV ads, and that's probably what's really behind some of this.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that a lot of the decisions made at the Capitol right now are done so with the threat of a political ad in mind.
All day, every day. Although there's not many decisions because they all went on Rumspringer or spring break.
They're on a little vacation. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, those 4-day work weeks.
Yeah.
They're hell.
Yeah. I want a 4-day work week.
They're hell. Let's move on. Let's talk about some of the vetoes. It seems like, again, Groundhog's Day. I mean, you start talking about she's vetoing pronoun bills. I mean, we knew this was going to happen.
Yep. I mean, that is a promise that she has kept and made good on, right? Like, these bills are dead. They are not. There's no hope for those, right? So we saw a couple of vetoes in that arena, these like anti-trans bills. A couple on border politics. Republicans have been sending her these bills that would basically tie her hands or like Attorney General May's hands to comply with like Trump immigration policies. One of them was, requiring hospitals that participate in Medicaid programs to get citizenship information. Veto.
Well, it seemed like some of the vetoes too in the letters too was she's really going after Jake Hoffman anytime she can. There was a bill about legislative appointments, and then she, in her veto letter, she said, "Yeah, I think they should be qualified, but she's not going to sign that bill as long as she doesn't think the legislature is taking her appointments very seriously as well."
Yeah, right. And I think there was one like a couple of weeks back where she just invoked like criminal speeder Jake Hoffman. Like, this is a reference that they have added to mentioning the indictment related to the 2020 election, but also, that time he got pulled over for speeding quite fast, trying to get to work, or I can't remember what.
Yeah, I can't remember. And I can't remember like a personal beef like this between a lawmaker and a governor that's played out like this in public. And, there was that legislative appointments bill, and there was another bill of Hoffman's or something where she had once again spelled out the DINO acronym, which is the committee that oversees executive nominations. So she thought it was cute once, and she like to run it back again. It's gotten very personal.
Yeah, they love talking about each other, which is
They
fascinating.
do. They need each other.
Yeah.
What else stood out on the veto list this week?
Let's see. Those were kind of the major ones. I think it's interesting. She's careening towards breaking her own record. She's at 137 for the year as of us sitting in this podcast studio. And her first year in office, she hit 143. So I think it's very likely we see that before the session wraps.
Yeah, and how much legislation is left?
I think there's like some major things, right? Obviously, Prop 123, that doesn't go to her, but that's something they need to resolve. I think you'll see a bill related to the Diamondbacks funding proposal.
I think you see that budget night. I think that gets rolled out with the budget bills or something like that.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
But they're gonna. I don't think they can do that just solely in the budget.
It'll be a standalone bill, but I think there's also going to be appropriations involved with that. But like, I think they roll it out that night and it gets passed adjacent to the budget, or
So at like 2 a.m. when we're all at the Capitol,
where all the great decisions are usually made.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other standout vetoes. I mean, it was really busy, right? Bunch of election stuff.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's just like the election stuff all just melds together. And again, I think part of our jobs, what we do is we pay more attention to the stuff she's going to sign, because that's the stuff that's going to affect people's lives.
Yeah. Although I think people really like reading about the vetoes. You know, her voters especially want to know that she's killing these bills that she said she would. So
Gulf of America,
yeah,
not happening in Arizona, right?
Right, yeah. Prohibition on DEI programs also not happening here.
Yeah,
so.
Standing firm on that. So, before we get out of here, I do want to go back and hit the legal defense fund again, real quick. Again, this was the governor who campaigned hard on transparency. What are people telling you? Do they think? Are they disappointed that maybe she didn't live up to that campaign promise, or what are you hearing?
I mean, I think there are a lot of questions about that right now in friendly circles and unfriendly circles, right? Certainly, Republicans at the legislature think that there's no way she has met that commitment, right? I'm thinking about T.J. Shope had a bill that was introduced that would have basically would have made it easier to see when companies that do work for the state on a contract basis make political donations. She vetoed that and hasn't explained why that part was problematic for her.
Yeah. And what people told me, I started calling around after that, and it's like, Dennis, this is inside baseball. This is inside. Nobody cares about this. And I was like, come on, dude.
Yeah, I don't.
I disagree 100%. I think this is a governor who campaigned one way, and I think it's acted in many cases 180 degrees from her campaign promise.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also noteworthy that recently, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a couple of examples that really raise the question about whether that promise has been met.
Oh boy. Well, look at that. I think we've had enough fun for this week on this one.
Did we get through all 137 vetoes? I thought we have so many left to talk.
That'll be in the footnotes of the show.
Okay, all right.
I'll include that in the show notes. You got that, Colin? You want to put that in the footnotes?
We're good. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Just a full list.
So let's end the show here. I know I'd love to talk about dive bars, but let's talk about. I've got this stupid punk rock reunion show coming up where I'm playing a show. What's your favorite place to go see a show that's not to see live music? That's not a major big arena. Where do you like to see?
Oh man,
see a show.
Okay, I'm in a country era.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been to the White Tank Corral?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's at the foothills of the White Tanks, outside stage, country music. Okay. Line dancing lessons if you're into that.
I've tried to quit.
Okay. I think the last time we talked about music on your show, Dennis, I professed a love for Mariah Carey. So I would just point out I like all types of music here.
You do. That's a wide array of things there. No, I think I love the Crescent Ballroom downtown. It's a great place to see a venue, and of course, I love the Rebel Lounge.
Classics.
It's the Classics Never Go Out of Style, formerly known as the Mason Jar. And I believe it was something else. It was the Anvil. It was a bar called the Anvil in between.
Okay. What about the Womack on 7th? You ever go there? It's pretty cool.
Yes.
Okay.
I like it because it's super dark in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best because of that. What was it called beforehand? It's got a history.
I'm not sure.
It was a really famous bar. I should know the oral history of all bars in Phoenix. I'm disappointed in myself.
That's the next podcast topic, actually.
Actually, yes. That'll be the next podcast topic. Actually, what's happening on the second half of the show, Colin and I are going to go after, get myself in a little bit of trouble with one of the governor candidates.
Uh-oh.
Ended up in a DGA press release.
I can't wait to hear all about it.
We'll be talking a little bit about that when we get back. But as always, thank you so much, Stacey. You're doing a great job. Always have. And I look forward to continued excellence from you. Thanks for stopping by.
Well, yeah. Thanks. Happy to be here.
And welcome back to the second half of the podcast as we record on what I'm calling it Grind It Out Friday.
Yes, it's been one of those.
Here with Colin Stanton, producer extraordinaire, who's referred to himself this week as the other guy.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Yeah, I'm not the guy who gets quoted in press releases. I'm the other guy.
That's the goal, is to get you quoted in a press release.
Yeah.
Maybe
Probably not going to happen.
Maybe get you into an RGA.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No. No, I
Can we slip you into an RGA?
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't carry the weight that political editor Dennis Welch carries when you pull a quote out and slap it all over a press release.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that in 1 second. It's been a hell of a week. It's been another grindy week. Give it up for Stacey from the Republic. She's always one of my favorite guests on the show.
Great guest. Yeah, it was fun.
And I can tell you, as somebody who used to have to, follow every detail coming out of the governor's office, particularly with the vetoes and the sign-ins and stuff, man, it is a grind and one hell of a job.
Yeah.
And she does a great job following all that. And, for somebody, I'm not required to do that to that level anymore as I used to. It's kind of weird. It's like I'm kind of envious and grateful that I don't have to do that. I'm like, grateful because, man, it takes a lot of time to do that. A little bit envious because you feel like you don't have sometimes your head around the legislature like you used to.
Yeah. It's one of those jobs you really have to throw yourself into, too. There was a time in my life where I would sometimes have to cover the Capitol. When I was working in Oregon, I'd sometimes have to go up to Salem and cover the Capitol there. And when you're only occasionally dropping in and have to try and make sense of it, it's sort of soul-crushing on a number of levels. It's not a particularly fun assignment.
No, it's not. It's a challenging thing if you're just parachuting in.
Yeah, if you're parachuting in, it's miserable.
Yeah. And
none of it makes any sense.
Exactly. So she does a great job with that. But yeah, let's talk about press releases. Yours truly found himself in the middle of.
Well, you were on top of, in the middle of. You got all over this press release. They actually led with a quote from you.
They did. It was a full quote. It was from, was our conversation last week?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were right here. We were talking about Karen Taylor Robeson. I may or may not have been ranting about how she doesn't come on the show.
Yeah, she doesn't do interviews.
She doesn't really do interviews with us. Mainstream. I mean, I saw her on Newsmax once where she was getting the hard questions.
She will do the occasional right-wing radio type thing.
Yeah.
But outside of that, she just buys a lot of commercial time.
To do what? Remind people that Trump endorsed her.
Yes, his total and complete endorsement, which he also gave to her competitor.
Yeah.
So I guess it just depends on your definition of total and complete.
Yeah, well, and whatnot. So to set this up, from the DGA press shop. Headline.
DGA being
the Democratic Governors Association.
Yes.
For those who aren't fluent in the acronym world of politics. Headlines. Arizona Republicans call on Karen Taylor Robeson to, quote, throw in the towel as Trump allies jump ship.
Yes.
And then the pull quote underneath that comes from yours truly. Karen Taylor Robeson is bad at this. It's just bad at politics. It's like she's an empty pantsuit.
Yeah. Which is a bit stitched together. You actually said the pantsuit thing about 3 minutes after you said the bad at politics thing.
Well,
but they captured the spirit of the thing.
They did. Her folks are not pleased with me. Had some conversations with that, and I've told you, I'll share with our audience here. It's like, look, if I was writing something, if I was writing a piece for online, it was a reporting piece, I probably would. I would not have used that phrase. I was, speaking extemporaneously in the podcast, and but you know what? I'm not walking away from it.
No,
I'm not backing down from it. Empty pantsuit can it's got a connotation of somebody who looks good, but fails to get results or is incompetent. Now, she has definitely been an accomplished businesswoman in her personal life. I don't want to take that away from her.
Yeah, no.
In her political life, though, what has she accomplished? She spent $20 million. What'd she get out of that 2 years ago?
She lost to Carrie Lake, who lost to Katie Hobbs.
Yeah. She, again, hired some Trump folks to secure that endorsement.
Yeah.
That didn't work out the way she wanted to, and they've jumped ship.
Yes.
And now, there's concerns about her the political world is chattering about the health of her campaign.
Yeah. She has positioned herself as the Trumpiest Trump candidate you'll find, and finds herself now running against Andy Biggs, who is Trumpier than she is.
In many respects.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm probably not going to be getting an interview with her anytime soon.
I'm not sure that's changed.
Yeah, so status quo.
Yes. Status quo remains.
She
ain't talking.
I was told, that, because, I was explaining that I think if somebody wants to be governor of Arizona and is spending, seven-figure ad buy currently right now, that she should come and answer questions from local folks, not just me. Like go to some of the other, more of the other local folks here, that cover this stuff and know these issues. And, I was told like she will be answering those questions, the hard questions in the coming months. It's just not going to be from a reporter who insulted her, and they feel that I insulted her. Fair enough.
All right. Yeah.
Fair enough. It wasn't reporting. It's podcasting. It's a bit opinionated here when we get to this part of it, and I'm fine with it. And I don't feel like anything out of line or anything I wish to take back.
No. Bad at politics. That's a little hard to argue with so far.
Yeah.
She lost to Carrie Lake.
Yeah.
Who lost to Katie Hobbs.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie Lake, who then again lost to Ruben Gallego during a red wave. She lost to a candidate that wasn't very good after spending $20 million to lose.
$20 million. And then, the whole goal was to keep the Trump endorsement. That didn't work.
And then she immediately apparently pissed off the two big consultants from Trump.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like a great success story.
No, and
so far.
and she may turn this around and win the primary, go on to win the general. Best of luck to her. I hope she has great luck on her campaign.
Yeah.
But as of right now, is she good at? You can't say she's good at politics.
We certainly haven't seen any evidence of it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So.
And an empty pantsuit sort of in the eye of the beholder, but politically there doesn't. We don't have any substance yet politically.
Yeah.
If you'd like to share something of substance, go ahead. I love Trump is not, even if you love Trump, is not a great mission statement.
And go to the website. I went there the other day, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I missed it. But, you're getting, again, seven-figure ad buy. It's at least $2 million because it was in the press release. It said a multi-million-dollar ad buy. If you go to the press, her website, there's really not an issues tab.
Yeah.
There's her biography there. And the only thing you really can tell is she's going to be strong for Arizona, strong for the economy, and strong on immigration. I believe those are the big three things.
Is that going to differentiate her from the candidate who promises to be weak on the economy and weak for Arizona?
No,
I will cower for Arizona.
So somebody is curious, like, who is this candidate? I'm looking up, I'm seeing, 15, 18 months before the election or whatever. She wants my vote that far out. Like, who the hell is this person? Where is she at on these issues? Where do you find that on her website?
Yeah,
at least on the website. I mean, it may be banked someplace else, but it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And that's what part of these interviews can help get out of her, because we've got a lot of issues right now. It'd be very interesting to see where somebody wants to be governor is on this. Now, I believe I read something this morning as we're taping that the Donald Trump's big beautiful bill may have hit a big roadblock in a House committee.
Yes. Because Republicans on the committee didn't think it cut Medicare enough, I believe.
Yeah,
I just saw the headline. But
Medicaid, Medicare.
Yeah,
it's a massive expenditure. We get a lot of money from the feds on this. Like, if that gets cut, that's going to affect state finances. Like, it'd be nice to be able to ask Karen Taylor Robeson, who is 100% Trump, whether she supports some of these ideas.
Yeah.
Would she support, even though like Trump is saying that he doesn't want to touch Medicaid? Okay, that's great. He wouldn't be the first president who said one thing and then did something else. And it wouldn't be the first time that Trump himself has said one thing and did something else.
And every indication we've had so far is that's where all this is going.
Yeah. So, where's the governor? Where would the one would-be governor be on some of this. And this stuff is important. And you know, like you know, you can get frustrated as a reporter and complain about it. You know, it's not about me though. It's about like where you want to take the state. What's the philosophy?
Yeah.
Because I believe we were talking one time, like, what is her political philosophy? How does she see the world?
Yeah. And so far, it doesn't particularly seem to be what it was last time around.
Yeah. So what is it now?
Yeah. Last time around, certainly the image was more of the Ducey business type Republican. Mm-hmm. And now it's waving the Trump MAGA flag.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, good luck waving it harder than Andy Biggs. I don't understand the approach there. And I suspect part of the problem with taking a stand on any issue and publicly listing your stand on any issue when your whole thing is I say whatever Trump says is God knows what Trump's going to say about any issue tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you actually go on the record, you will be opposing Trump at some point because he changes his view on these things all the time.
And that's why it's important to get people now where they're at.
Yeah.
Not a year from now when, you know, she can change, she can craft any message for the moment. Like, where are you now? Like, you know, that's the important thing because everybody gets elected from these certain promises, and a lot of times it's other issues that come up that you got to deal with to define, you know, your administrations, be it the presidency or in the governorship.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to know, like, what prism do you see the world through? What do you put everything through?
Yeah.
And how do you see the world, you know, philosophically and politically? Because you're going to be asked to decide a lot of issues that you haven't even come up yet.
Yeah.
And get her on the record on that. So, you know, I mean, it's just like Biggs. When we get Biggs on the show, we'll ask him. I mean, there are significant questions. He's a congressman. You know, would he vote to let Trump get a $400 million gift from Qatar or United Arab Emirates or wherever that place is coming from?
And that's the thing. She's a political outsider. She's never held an office like this. She's a lobbyist and a businesswoman. Andy Biggs has a track record.
Yeah. She's never won any office except an appointment.
Yeah.
She was appointed to the Board of Regents.
Yeah.
And Andy Biggs, and you make a great point there. I mean, Andy Biggs has won many elections.
Yes.
Going back to the legislative days.
Yeah. We know where he stands on the issues because he's voted on those issues repeatedly.
Yeah, there's no nuance on vote board.
No.
It's up or down.
Yeah.
And that's why they always call it the legislature. They call it the Board of Truth because you got to live with that.
Yeah.
So, you know.
All right.
But
well, let's see if you get aggregated again.
Well, maybe. Let's see if we get you, man. Get you into this thing.
Like I said, I'm
you
the
know,
other
it'd be great
guy.
if they quoted you as the other guy.
Yeah, I'm the other guy. I don't carry the weight that Dennis carries.
Stop.
I'm not political editor. I'm merely the wrangler for the political editor, Dennis Welch. The sidekick, the other guy.
All right, let's move on to, like, I know it's one of your favorite topics of all time, Pete Rose. For those of you who don't know, because this is politics, we get a lot of people. Maybe I'm assuming that listen to this podcast who use terms like, you know, sport ball unironically.
Yeah.
Pete Rose is the Major League hit king. He's got more hits in baseball than any other human being who's played Major League Baseball in America.
Yeah. And he's not in the Hall of Fame.
And yeah, there's a reason for that.
Few, but yeah, one big one.
One really big one. He broke what had always been the golden rule of baseball, which is thou shalt not gamble on baseball.
Yes, and he did.
And lied about it for decades.
Yes.
And also was kind of a terrible human being.
Yeah. Yeah. There was the whole thing with 15-year-old too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came up.
And so, yeah, he's been banned from baseball, which meant couldn't go in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so this week, Commissioner Rob Manfred announced that if you're dead, you're no longer banned. Your lifetime ban it does expire with the end of your life.
Yeah, it's a logical argument. Once you're dead, you're
Sure.
You know.
It seemed whatever. So
tell that to Shoeless Joe.
So yes, so the Black Sox become eligible, particularly Shoeless Joe. And Pete Rose becomes eligible for the Hall.
Oh.
And I guess theoretically to be hired as a manager, but unlikely because Pete Rose is dead.
Yeah. And for decades now, talk radio has been obsessed with discussing whether Pete Rose should be in the Hall or not. Usually this conversation pops up around the All-Star break.
Yeah, All-Star.
When there's no professional basketball, there's no professional baseball.
Yes.
Because they're on a break, and there's no professional football. So what do you talk about? Pete Rose.
You got two options. If you're a sports talk guy, you have two options to get the phone ringing.
Mm-hmm.
It's Pete Rose or who should be the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. And if it's out of season, there's nothing going on with the Cowboys, you got Pete. Until he screwed up their scheduling by dying.
So I think I told you earlier, I'm very Mo Udall on this.
Yeah.
Mo Udall used to say when asked about a controversial bill, he would say, some of my friends are for it, some of my friends are against it. I stand with my friends.
Yeah.
And like, if you some people want Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame, some people don't. I stand with them.
Yeah. And I'm solidly in the camp of, now that he's dead, if you want to put him in, sure. While he was still alive, not a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Screw Pete Rose.
Yeah.
If you want to throw up a plaque now that he's dead, I don't care.
Well, and I have been told that there is something about him in the Hall of Fame. Because at this point you got baseball, the hit king, the hit leader, all-time hit leader, and the all-time home run leader are not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel differently about Bonds and
Yes.
Clemens than I do about Rose.
Yes. And I think Bonds replaces Rose in the get the phones ringing.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. There's a slightly different dynamic there. But yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm all for putting in the former Arizona State Sun Devil, Barry Bonds.
And the thing that gets me about that is they're not getting voted in because they were drug cheats. And sure, I get that.
Yeah.
Bet you there are a hell of a lot of drug cheats that we put in, and there are a lot of I've always been sort of troubled by we know this guy's a drug cheat versus the guys where we go, well, we certainly know they're no drug cheat. And I sit there going, how the hell do we know that? Why are we accepting that someone couldn't possibly be a drug cheat, but these guys, we just know these guys were, and they were. I mean, the evidence is certainly there. And it'd be silly to argue that we don't really know about Bonds and Clemens, but just to pick a name at random, I'm not suggesting this person has done anything bad. I just find it funny that we look at someone like Ken Griffey and say, and repeatedly I've heard, well, we know he didn't do it.
How do you know?
Because he has a nice grin and put his hat on backwards? I'm not suggesting he did anything. Had devastating injuries that were typically the type one does. The steroid users had like the horrible, like muscle tearing off the bone type injuries. He had one of those. I don't know that he did. I'm not suggesting he did, but I don't know how I know he didn't.
Well, and there's also talk about other players, beloved players. I mean, there's didn't mention his name. I think people who pay attention will know who I'm talking about. But there's a beloved Arizona Diamondback who had an incredible power surge kind of late in his career.
Yeah,
and
one of many. There were a lot of people in that era.
There were a lot of Brady Anderson. Remember Brady Anderson?
Yes.
Yeah.
The light hitting guy who then suddenly hit like 49 home runs and then didn't again.
Well, I mean, Sammy Sosa was was a base stealer.
Yeah.
He was known for speed and stealing bases, and then he just got all yoked.
Yeah. No, he suddenly looked like the Michelin Man and is cranking home runs, and then a lot went on with Sammy.
There's a lot went on. Just the credit, he hit 60 home runs a year, like 3 or 4 times, but never won the home run the home run title.
Yeah,
this is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the era. I'm all for it. Like, hey, put Barry in. He defined that era, good, bad, otherwise.
Yeah, and there is sort of an accepted date where we believe that Bonds started cheating, and he was a Hall of Famer before that.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and like, look, and as you were saying, like, you know, he's not in because he's a giant asshole,
right?
And he has
if
been.
If you were
for
banning,
a lot of people,
yeah.
You
If you were banning giant assholes, there would be a very small crowd inside the Hall of Fame.
I mean, who would be in the Hall of Fame? That's a serious question.
Yeah,
there's a lot of baseball players. I mean, I've met a few of them, and like I've had some. Okay, a couple of them are good, but man, those guys can be a little.
Ask any sports writer.
Yeah,
who they, in general terms, which sport they enjoy dealing with the players and which sport they don't. And everyone I've ever heard talk about it says baseball players are the worst, and there's nothing close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shifting to football. Let's talk a little football.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little football. We had a big, maybe the biggest moment of the year for the NFL, right?
This stuff is so weird to me. I don't get it.
It's they released for those of you who don't know, for those of you who still listening but who still refer to sport ball unironically, the NFL released their schedule this week.
When did this become such an event?
I don't know.
It's so weird, and part of this is
so dumb.
I don't have like a team I live and die with. I'm not a huge.
You're
fan
more of a college football.
Yeah, and I like the NFL. I watch the NFL, but I don't have any. I mean, I grew up in Southern California. We had teams coming and going all the time. My allegiance, whatever allegiance I had, went out the window. At this point, I mostly root for the Chargers because of Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I like the Cardinals, so I'll root for the Cardinals. But I'm not, I am not obsessing over which days this year they will face the 49ers.
Yeah, and I can confirm you'll root for the Cardinals and also text me on a given Sunday, making comments about Kyler Murray, saying, "Look at the cute wee little man,
look at the wee little legs bumping down the field." Yeah, I question the usefulness of a small quarterback.
I know you do.
Yeah,
but back to the schedule, all these videos that come out. I mean,
yes. And I think part of this is, I think the Chargers were the first to do it, and they're certainly the best that do it. The Chargers put out a video each year of their schedule. This year they did it all using Minecraft, and it's very
blew
smart.
Up too.
Yeah, it's really smart. It's funny. It's filled with little Easter eggs. If you pause it repeatedly and look at it, you'll find stuff like I think for the Vikings game. If you pause and look at the banners that are on the wall in like the castle or whatever they have for the Vikings, there's one for the Vikings have hung a banner for having the best record for a wild card team. And then there's an even snottier one for the Minnesota Wild next to it, like the Minnesota's hockey team taking strays. So those are kind of funny, but now everyone does a video.
I know. Well,
and I just don't get it.
Yeah, and the Cardinals had one of their players do a rap, and he rapped the whole schedule, which, considering the other things I saw this past week, it wasn't bad.
One I thought was funny, the Colts did one where at some point they made a joking reference to, do you remember Tyreek Hill getting pulled over by police in front of the stadium? They had something where Tyreek Hill was on a boat and he was pulled over by the Coast Guard. And then they pulled it back because I guess there were two things. I guess they didn't really have the rights to use Minecraft, which they were using for it. And the Chargers got the rights. The Colts didn't. But the other thing was they pulled it back and issued an apology to Tyreek Hill for for making light of this thing that happened to him, and they're so sorry. And Tyreek Hill put on social media, "No, man, you should have left it up. That was funny."
It's just ridiculous. Football has gotten, and I'm a fan, a little bit ridiculous in this country. It is just so dominant.
The whole thing for the release of the schedule is just.
It's kind of an NFL. It's kind of an NL flex. Like, look how popular we are.
Yeah.
Any other league releases a schedule, it's like, who gives a crap?
Yeah.
But now they've made it a big event, and to the point where they're like, for days leading up to it, there were leaks.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Whatever, man.
Yeah.
Whatever. So, let's wrap up with this, man. Again, we tape on Friday. Been a long week. Been the grind out Friday too. What's your favorite venue to go watch music? I asked Stacey. I divulged mine. Rebel Lounge.
See, and I've never been to the Rebel Lounge. I'm looking forward to going there.
All right. I know a show you could show up on.
Yeah, I think I'll be there.
Okay.
I like the Van Buren a lot.
Van Buren's great.
Yeah. Crescent Ballroom is terrific.
Amazing.
I've had tickets to 3 shows there. I've been to 1 because I managed to get strep throat the day of. I was supposed to see Squeeze at the Crescent Ballroom.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Got strep throat, couldn't go. And then on my birthday, I had tickets to see Matt Nathanson at the Crescent Ballroom, and got COVID. Tested positive for COVID that morning.
Well, yeah, I was like jealous. I was like, you sound like me. Like I cancel last minute going to shows all the time. Go buy the ticket and like day of the show, I don't feel like going.
I'm at least good about not buying the ticket before I do that.
Oh,
there have been shows, and there's shows I'm kicking myself to this day I didn't go to that I could have gone to and just went, it's in the middle of the week. I don't know. The Specials played the Van Buren.
Well, yeah, I think it's
and I
like
didn't
that.
go.
I think it's like when I go way back, I was like, one of my biggest regrets, I never went to go see Tom Petty.
Yeah.
I really wanted to see Tom Petty.
Yeah. And then you run into that issue where, like, at some point they can't tour anymore.
Yeah.
You know, Terry Hall, I figured, well, the Special's been touring a lot. I'll see them some other time. I should go, but I'm tired. It's Tuesday night. I got to work tomorrow. And like 6 months later, Terry Hall's dead of pancreatic cancer, and I'm not going to see the Specials anytime soon.
Yeah, that happens. But yeah, I love those venues. I love the Van Buren. I love Crest. I think the same people who run those venues, are they connected? Or
I think so, or were.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if one of them might be Live Nation now. I'm not positive. Thoughts on the Marquee? I hear mixed things about the Marquee.
There's a lot I could say.
Okay. And I realize you're a little more connected on these things than I am.
There's a lot I could
And
say.
yeah, as I'm freer said, I've generally had a good experience there. I see a lot of people complaining about the sound, complaining about the security, complaining about all kinds of stuff. And I don't know if I'm going to mellower shows than they do, but I've seen a lot of shows at the Marquee, and no real complaints.
Now, the one thing I haven't done, when one of my my complaints, biggest complaints about that place too, other than again, I could say about a lot else going on with that venue.
Yeah.
But was just the location. I hate that location.
It's tricky.
And so what I haven't done is ride the light rail out there. Maybe that changes the whole thing.
Maybe.
Because unless you show up early and get a good spot, like you really could be in the wilderness, man.
Well, there's now a building across the street that allows them to use the parking garage.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is not the most convenient, but
It tells you how long
it's fine.
It tells you how long it's really been since I've been to the Marquee.
My weirdest Marquee experience, and I've seen a lot. I mean, I've seen Crowded House there. I saw Johnny Marr there. That was an amazing show. Saw Social Distortion. I've seen a bunch of bands there too. Yeah. I saw the Gaslight Anthem there.
Okay.
Great show. And when we walk out at the end of the show, I look out and there are sirens going all around Tempe Town Lake. There's like a boat launch right at the end of the parking lot of the Marquee to go into to Tempe Town Lake, and there are police cars there with lights on. And I start looking, and Tempe Town Lake is gone. It was the night the dam broke.
Oh.
So we pull into the venue to go to the show. There's a lake there. We get out of the show. There's no lake.
That's amazing.
I love that. It was really weird.
I love that.
It was really, really weird.
I love that. Where'd the water go?
Yes. Yeah, there was a lake here. I know it.
Where'd the water go?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Good show.
Good show. Good times. Good times. Top-notch podcasting here, man.
Yeah.
Top-notch.
By the way, the one place I can't stand in town, whatever the amphitheater is called out on the west side, if I see a show is there.
Oh, Blockbuster?
Blockbuster,
used to be
Desert Sky,
yeah.
Cricket, Room Store, Auction, Talking Stick.
Yeah,
whatever it is. I don't care who's playing there, man. It's a no-go for me. Getting in and out is miserable, and the design of the place I hate it so much.
Yeah, that place, yeah.
Saw one of my favorite bands there and had a lousy experience. Like, how's this even possible? I saw REM there.
Well, and
it
they
was
have
drag.
You know what's funny too is they have shows there in the summertime. Like, how?
We, my wife and I, saw Counting Crows and the Wallflowers there.
Oh boy,
in August when she was 7 months pregnant. August when she was 7 months pregnant.
I'm sorry.
It was perhaps not well thought out.
No, I feel miserable for her.
And yes. And to cap it off, like the Wallflowers are actually great.
Yeah.
Jacob Dylan's really talented. Those Counting Crows, worst live band I've ever seen.
Wow, that's a lot.
And I've seen a lot of bands. I've seen some not all that great bands. This was the only one I've ever seen where the lead singer looks like he was pulled off the street and handed a lyric sheet and it's thrown out on the stage. Just paced around the stage going, Mr. Jones and me to tell fairy tale. And it was like he didn't know the song for the entire set. It was like he didn't know the songs.
Like, for that band, all he had to do was know that song.
Pretty much.
Just that song.
The band itself sounded fine. He was so awful. And he's come out in recent years and said he has a mental illness that makes it difficult to perform, which
All right. I saw that you were having
bad line of work for that.
I saw that you had some difficulty performing.
Yeah. It was bad. I don't really recommend an August show there when you're 7 months pregnant.
No, I don't recommend going outside to see a show in summertime in the Valley.
One of the reasons I've never seen Wilco, who I really like, is they're always outdoors and always they had a July 4th outdoor show here. That's like, who's booking that?
Miserable.
Yes.
I remember I had to work years ago on an Independence Day, and I had to go out to the tent city for when Arpaio was still sheriff. Oof.
Oof.
Oof. It's freaking hot.
Yeah.
Any positive thoughts you want to leave us with, man?
God, it shouldn't be that much of a stumper, should it?
I know, right? Any words of wisdom? Any inspirational quotes you're going to put down on your Instagram? Because I know you're big on that.
No. Yeah. Don't forget your self-worth. I got nothing. Looking forward to some good basketball tonight and Sunday.
Sunday. Well, I'm looking forward to hopefully the D-backs can get the job done with the Rockies over the weekend.
Sure. The Rockies are one of the worst teams in baseball history at the moment, so you would hope.
You would hope they get the sweep. But, baseball's weird.
And again, I'm an Angels fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I never expect, last year the White Sox were one of the worst teams in history, and I think had a shot to be the worst team in history.
The Rockies are like, hold my beer.
Well, and then the White Sox ended the season with a series against the Angels, and the Angels got swept.
Yeah, it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen.
And I think the Angels had a better year last year than they're having this year.
We'll end on that then.
Yeah, sure.
Colin, don't forget your self-worth.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll be here next week.
Okay.
I've got jury duty, so the superior courts will decide whether I'm available next week. Yeah, we'll see.
Oh man, you should get Morgan Lowe in here then. If you can't go. Just have him.
He's quotable.
He's quotable.
Yeah,
he
could turn
it's
up
like
in
the whole
next
goal
DJ
should be every show is like, who can we get quoted in next week?
Yeah.
Or maybe all the only people who listen are just like the campaign trackers.
Maybe. But thanks for listening.
Yeah, but thanks for listening. And if that's the case, keep on tracking.
I assume your feelings when you saw that you were quoted were like 50%. Oh, this is going to be a headache I don't need, and 50%. Hey, thanks for listening.
Thanks for finally getting the recognition.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening. And
thanks for listening.
For all the trackers out there, keep on tracking.
Yeah. Probably see you in a week.
Bye. Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.